A desert planet with twin suns.
Why do I sense we've picked up another pathetic life form?
Use my knowledge. Much to learn, you still have.
Welcome back to Twin Sun Talks, folks. I'm your host, Jonah Liu. Thank you so much for listening, and we're going back in time a little bit. I'm using my old microphone, so if the sound quality is a little different, that's why. But this is our second installment of our Star Wars boot camp, and I really can't wait to get into it. So without further ado, let's dive into boot camp.
Move it, troopers! On the double! Yes, sir!
So the purpose of these boot camps is to essentially help people who aren't as familiar with Star Wars dive into the franchise in a less intimidating way. And in our first installment, we talked about the original trilogy, which is the first three movies to come out, or the middle three in chronological order. And before I dive into this week, which is the prequel trilogy, I just want to point out that I didn't talk about Darth Vader in my important characters section. I had it written down and I just totally skipped it over. And so I just want to say that Darth Vader is a very important part of the original trilogy. He's the main villain of those three movies, and he's sort of a mysterious dark warrior of the Sith. So that's really what you need to know. I'm sorry. Thank you to my buddy Ad Exodorn for pointing it out, as well as another listener who I'm not sure if they want me to blow up their spot or not, so I'll leave them anonymous, but you know who you are. If you do want a shout out in a future episode, let me know, and I'll make that happen. But that being said, this week we're talking about the prequel trilogy, which is episodes 1, 2, and 3, the middle in release order, but the first in chronological order, which can get a little confusing, but these were movies that were made from between 1999 and 2005, and they are in order: Episode 1, The Phantom Menace; Episode 2, Attack the Clones; Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. So this is going to be formatted very similarly to my original trilogy episode, so buckle up and let's dive into it. So, characters to know. Anakin Skywalker is the main protagonist, and he sort of drives the story. Obi-Wan Kenobi is a mentor and friend to Anakin, and is sort of a moral compass for him, as is Padme Amidala, who's a love interest to Anakin, and is sort of the moral center of that trio as well. We also have C-3PO and R2-D2 returning. They were characters that were also in the original trilogy, and like I said, they provide comic relief and sort of overlap with the characters in other characters in different ways. We then have Chancellor Palpatine, who's the leader of the Republic and a mentor and father figure to Anakin. And then we have Darth Sidious, who's the main villain of these three movies and is sort of a mysterious dark warrior of the Sith, much like Darth Vader, but even more in the shadows and sort of pulling the strings from behind the scenes. So those are the main characters. Honorable mentions include Yoda, who's a very old and wise master who is unassuming but very powerful, similar to how he appears in the original trilogy. We also have Darth Maul, who's a mysterious warrior in The Phantom Menace. Count Dooku is a new antagonist introduced in Attack of the Clones. He's the leader of the Separatist Alliance, and he was once a Jedi, but he turned to the dark side. Qui-Gon Jinn, who is introduced in The Phantom Menace, is Obi-Wan Kenobi's master and was a mentor to Anakin. And then lastly, we have Mace Windu, my favorite character personally, who was a very powerful Jedi during this era and was also sort of the personification of Jedi hubris and arrogance. So those, I think, are the most important characters to know when looking at the prequel trilogy. Looking at some locations, we have Tatooine, which we already know from the original trilogy. It's a desert planet. It's a very common setting throughout all of Star Wars. It's also the home place of Anakin. Naboo is very similar to Earth. It has a lot of swamps and mountains and lakes, and it's Padme's home world. It's also the home of the Gungans. If you know Jar Jar Binks, he's a Gungan. Coruscant. The whole planet is one big city, and it is the capital of the galaxy, or the capital of the Republic. Kamino is a water world, very backwater world, as they would say, but it's also covered in oceans. And it's very far from everything else. It's the home of the clone army, which you'll get introduced to, hence the name Attack the Clones. Geonosis is a hostile desert world, home to insectoid Geonosians, who are sort of manufacturers. They make a lot of these droids called battle droids, which are the foot soldiers for the Separatist Alliance, which we'll get to later. Utapau is a sinkhole planet introduced in Revenge of the Sith. Kashyyyk, also introduced in Revenge of the Sith, is the home planet of the Wookiees, which is Chewbacca's species. And then Mustafar is a lava planet, and George Lucas's sort of idea of what hell would be like, also introduced in Revenge of the Sith. So those are sort of the main planets that we get introduced to and spend a lot of time on in those three movies. Moving on just general other things to know. First of all, we have the Jedi, who we already were introduced to, but they operate very differently within the confines of this trilogy because they are peacekeepers within the galaxy. They serve the Republic, and they use the Force to help maintain peace. They are also forbidden from forming attachments because it could inhibit their ability to remain objective. They use the light side of the Force and are considered the good guys. Their dark side counterparts are called the Sith. They use fear and anger to gain power and rule with absolute authority. They have red lightsabers. Jedi have blue and green, and you see someone with a purple lightsaber as well. So that's how you differentiate based on lightsaber color. And speaking of lightsabers, they are the iconic weapon of the Jedi and Sith. They're swords with blades of energy. And like I said, red are for the Sith, and then blue, green, and purple are for the Jedi. The Force is an energy field that gives Jedi and Sith unique powers. It flows through all life and connects everything in the galaxy. It allows people to move stuff with their minds, shoot lightning from their hands, all sorts of cool stuff. Also, sense what's going to happen in the future. The Republic is the central government of most of the galaxy. The Separatist or the Confederacy of Independent Systems are planets that secede from the Republic because of the corruption and negligence of that central body. The Trade Federation is sort of a financial conglomerate that sort of monitors and influences trade throughout the galaxy. They're very prominently featured in The Phantom Menace. Next up, we have clone troopers, who are the foot soldiers of the Republic. They have iconic white armor. Battle droids are the foot soldiers for the Separatist Alliance. They are robots that are programmed to sort of eradicate and destroy. That is their main objective. And then finally, we have the Clone Wars, which is a galactic conflict between the Republic and the Confederacy of Independent Systems, or the Separatist Alliance. So that's about all that I have for that. One sentence synopses of each of these movies. The Phantom Menace. On a mission to assist the people of Naboo, the Jedi stumble across an unassuming boy who could fulfill an important prophecy. Next up for Attack the Clones, we have, in the midst of a secessionist crisis, our heroes are put at odds with both their Jedi doctrine of non-attachment as well as their role as peacekeepers. And lastly, for Revenge of the Sith, my favorite movie personally. As a galactic conflict continues to spread, our heroes are caught in an intricate web of darkness that could spell doom for the Jedi. Now, that's all that I have. I love the prequel trilogy so much. I think that it gets a very bad rep. And I think that if you go into it with a very open mind and know that some of the dialogue and acting is going to be kind of corny, campy, and cringy, it's a really interesting story, and I think that it's very worth exploring more and giving some thought to. And eventually we're going to talk about the shows where I'm going to get to talk about the Clone Wars. That really enhances your experience of the prequels as well. So all that to say, I'm a huge prequels fan, and I can't wait for y'all to get to enjoy it as well. But while that's the end of what I have to say about the prequels, this wouldn't be a proper episode if I didn't leave you with just a little bit more. So today what I have for y'all is that there were actually no physical sets of armor made for clone troopers in the prequels. They were all rendered using CGI. So the first time that physical clone armor was shown on screen was actually in the most recent show, The Book of Boba Fett. So that's a pretty cool thing, and super interesting that they chose to go with full CGI for the prequels. But that being said, that's all that I have for this episode. I really hope that y'all enjoyed it. Stay tuned for my Andor review and breakdown later this week on Wednesday. And then this month's Ability to Speak Does Not Make You Intelligent is dropping on Friday. I'm having some buddies of mine that are also content creators come on, and we're just going to talk about what Star Wars means to us, what content creation means to us, and it's going to be a great time. Y'all should definitely listen. And I hope that y'all share this with anybody that's trying to get into Star Wars. I hope that you use it to help people get into Star Wars. If you don't want them to listen to my voice and you want them to listen to yours, whatever floats your boat, I'm game for whatever. I just want this to get heard one way or another. So that being said, make sure you follow us on Instagram at Twin Sun Talks. Subscribe to us on YouTube, Twin Sun Talks Podcast, and listen wherever you get your podcasts by searching Twin Sun Talks and press and follow so you don't miss an episode. That being said, you've taken your first steps into a larger world. May the Force be with you, and I will see y'all in the next episode. Bye, friends.